joined us here in person and remotely. We say welcome. Today, GBH's Forum Network is presenting our fifth and final program through a 2-year collaboration with MassINC. The programs that we've produced together have covered a range of topics, from maternal health to voter engagement, civil rights, and the concerns of Native communities. When I joined GBH nearly 5 years ago, I knew that not only would I do everything within my power to bring accurate, quality news reporting to the public, but I'd also work to ensure that all communities are covered responsibly, and especially those that often exist on the margins, those that are often unseen or overlooked. And so this partnership is especially important to us. And what I didn't realize was how different the world of public media would be today versus then. It's no secret that public media stations across the country are dealing with unprecedented federal funding cuts that hit core to our mission, making partnerships like this one with MassINC even more meaningful. I want to thank Charlotte Golar Richie. Let's give her a round of applause. Who has collaborated with us at the Forum Network since 2022. And I want to thank our senior digital producer, Annie Schreffler, and her team, Emma and Andrew, and our team here at the BPL, who courageously continue to produce conversations like this one and programs like this one, even in these hot mess times, if I may say so. Before I pass the mic to my friend Joe, as part of our tradition here at GBH, I'd like to read this land acknowledgement. GBH honors the Massachusetts, Wampanoag, and Nipmuc peoples, whose ancestral lands provide the foundation for GBH's Massachusetts studios, including this one, bureaus, and transmitter. We honor the cultures, contributions, and connections of Native Indigenous peoples to our work, our local community, our Commonwealth, and our nation. Further, we recognize the importance of moving beyond acknowledgement toward action. We commit to learning from, including, and elevating Native Indigenous peoples' perspectives, voices, and languages locally and nationally through our public media mission. Okay, audience, thank you again for joining us. Your presence here today inspires all of us at GBH News to press on with our mission, to engage the public, and to tell stories that need to be told. Joe, happy anniversary to MassINC. Understand this is 30 years of policy leadership for you all, and I'm pleased to pass the mic to you.
Well, thank you, Lee. Really appreciate that. And we are so grateful for this partnership that Charlotte put together to make sure that the stories of different communities around the Commonwealth are heard and that people are able to talk about their own stories in their own voice. It's a great partnership. We hope it can continue for many years as we work together on our shared mission of informing the public and making sure that important conversations are held. As you said, Lee, now more than ever, we need to work together. Today's program is particularly exciting to us because it's the culmination of the inaugural cohort of the Greg Torres Senior Fellowship Program. MassINC created this program in honor of our former CEO and former board chair, Greg Torres, who passed away in 2023. And while I only had the honor to work with Greg for a few months, I immediately saw his unique style of leadership, grounded in a deep belief in social justice and a commitment to supporting others in their own leadership. And that's why we created this program, a fellowship program that elevates civic leaders in our community and empowers them to have even greater impact, precisely what Greg did throughout his career. This inaugural cohort, who you'll be hearing from momentarily, is a great group of leaders, and we selected these individuals to be our guinea pigs in this first round because we know they have deep expertise in the areas where they work, but also they are individuals who are self-starters, who make things happen and lead with integrity and focus. And they've lived up to our aspirations, and we're deeply proud of the precedent they've set, and we're excited about the next cohort that's starting this month. Thank you, Lee, for mentioning our anniversary. I want to invite everybody here to our 30th anniversary celebration on May 14th. You can learn more at www.massinc.org. It's going to be a great opportunity to celebrate what's been achieved over the past 30 years, but more importantly, to set the stage for the work that we still have in front of us. Finally, I want to express our gratitude to the woman who made this partnership happen, who conceived of and executed each of these programs, who drove them forward. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome to the podium my longtime colleague, collaborator, and friend, Charlotte Golar Richie.
Thank you, Joe. We have been longtime friends. Thank you. And Lee Hill, great to work with both of you. It's been a wonderful collaboration these last 2 years with GBH and MassINC. I'm Charlotte Golar Richie, co-producer of this program, Shaping the Next Chapter for Massachusetts. As a Greg Torres Senior Fellow, I want to thank the Torres family for their support of this fellowship, because it's been a privilege to be part of this program, this fellowship, and Greg's legacy. Today's program is the last installment in a series of community conversations that I produced in partnership with Annie Schreffler and her team at the GBH Forum Network. When I started this fellowship back in spring of 2024, my goal was to convene 5 conversations, and these programs would include diverse voices and explore the issues related to race and gender, equity and inclusion, despite the increasing backlash that we've seen regarding various policies and public discussion of these issues. In other words, at a time where a hot mess, as Lee characterized it, I think I say ditto on that, it's been somewhat challenging. But here we are, and we find ourselves in a much changed world, one in which there is, frankly, a lot of meanness and negativity. It's a world that was characterized recently by a New York Times columnist as an age in which we are witnessing a rise in cruelty. That's whether we're talking about international affairs or issues that directly impact us right here at home. Again, against this backdrop, my goal has been to highlight the work of individuals who find ways every day to counter this trend of negativity. And the bottom line is that there are a lot of people doing a lot of good things. And I'm happy to be with them here today. And I'm happy that we were also able to capture the work that they are doing. And you'll learn a lot about what that is in the conversation that we are convening here today. As a recap, I want to tell you briefly about the programs that preceded this one today. If you missed them, you can still catch them online. Our first program, Birthing Justice, Finding a New Way Forward. In this program, legislators, advocates, policy leaders all looked at the racial disparities in maternal health and ways to promote better health outcomes for pregnant women and those who have recently given birth. Our second program, Kickoff at the Ballot Box. Here we were joined by Attorney General Andrea Campbell, the first Black woman to ever hold statewide office here in Massachusetts. She discussed her office's efforts to support voter participation and safeguard our elections. Next was our third convening, entitled False Narratives, featuring representatives from Native communities. They candidly, powerfully shared their experiences about the ways they've been impacted by society's negative images, and they shared their thoughts about the ways that we, non-Native people, can join them in addressing these issues. Our fourth program, 5 years later, reflecting on the legacy of George Floyd, we heard from faith and nonprofit leaders who together with law enforcement recalled Floyd's murder and discussed steps that can be taken to promote respectful dialogue and better policing. and also provide people with the knowledge and the tools that they need to exercise their rights. I am very excited to be able to present today's fifth and final program, which is being held in front of a live audience here at GBH's studio in the Boston Public Library in Copley Square. This program, which is being recorded and live streamed, offers the perspectives of 4 panelists, 3 who are with us today, all of whom are Greg Torres Senior Fellows. Guided by our moderator, Dr. Cynthia Orellana, our panelists are going to tell us about how they're using their individual platforms, effecting change in their communities, and shaping the next chapter for Massachusetts. Before I present the panel, a friendly reminder to everybody here, just if you could silence your cell phones so that they don't interfere with our recording of the program and our panelists' train of thought. And also want to say that if you are interested in asking a question, there'll be an opportunity for you to do so. If you would prefer, you could jot down your notes in this card, and someone will help you. Andrew Longo, who just raised his hand, will help you deliver this card to the moderator. And then if you prefer also to speak at the mic, we can make that happen as well. Okay, let's meet our panelists. Leverett, Wing, Dina Fein, Mary Wambui. I'm so thrilled to have them here with us today. Unfortunately, our 4th panelist, Pema Latshang, is not feeling her best and was not able to join us, and I know there are people in the audience here who wanted to see her and maybe online as well. Pema, we hope you're feeling better. I'll start with Pema, and just so that you can know who she is, because she's made a huge contribution to her fellowship program and to the work that she's done in the field of education. She's the founder of PDL Consulting. She established Teach Western Mass, a nonprofit that promotes a holistic approach to teacher training and education equity with a focus on education diversity. Her case study on the success of Teach Western Mass explores how to replicate the model statewide. Dina Fein. Dina is a retired housing court judge and leading housing advocate. She is working today to promote affordable homeownership, neighborhood stabilization. Dina helped launch the City of Homes project in Springfield, Massachusetts, which seeks to transfer vacant, distressed properties to nonprofits for rehab and sale to income-eligible first-time homebuyers. Dina helped secure a $3 million grant for a pilot program in Springfield. She's now working to scale this initiative, bringing it to Massachusetts gateway cities. Mary Wambui, I'll go to Mary next, is Director of Asset Management, Residence and Energy for the Planning Office of Urban Affairs, POUA, a nonprofit social justice ministry of the Roman Catholic Archdiocese of Boston. As a regional leader and advocate for housing, climate, and energy equity, Mary has been working to gain passage of state legislation to reduce energy costs for thousands of low-income Massachusetts households. And third, my friend Leverett Wing, Executive Director of the Commonwealth Seminar, a nearly 25-year-old civic education, skills building, and networking program. Previously, Leverett served as a housing official at the Massachusetts Department of Housing and Community Development and as Executive Director for the national organization Asian and Pacific Islander American Vote, APIA Vote. And today he is hoping to bring the Commonwealth Seminar, this model of it, to Massachusetts gateway cities. As I hand off this program to our moderator, Dr. Cynthia Orellana, I want to tell you a little bit about her too. Cynthia is the president and CEO of the Mass Mentoring Partnership, where she connects young people across Massachusetts to high-quality mentoring relationships. A lifelong Cambridge resident and daughter of Salvadoran immigrants, Cynthia has held leadership roles in state government and higher education. We are delighted to have Cynthia with us today, given that so many young people are contemplating their futures and worried about the world we are leaving to them. Cynthia is the perfect person to lead today's timely discussion with our outstanding panel of leaders, each of whom is a living example of how to make change wherever you are. Again, welcome everyone. Cynthia, over to you.
Wonderful.
Charlotte.
Charlotte, thank you so much for that framing and for setting the stage for this conversation. I'll pick up where you left off, and it is because this is a moment where a lot feels uncertain, where systems are being tested, where people are asking real questions about what's working, what's not, and what comes next. And moments like this, they can go a lot of different ways. They can stall us, or they can move us. They can divide us, or they can push us to build something better. And what matters is what it is that we choose to do about it. And that's why this conversation matters, because you're going to hear this afternoon from folks that are not just doing theoretical work. They are doing work that is not distant. It's people right now doing the work with urgency, with resiliency, with vision, with persistence, trying to move us forward to something better, even when the path isn't always clear. And I'll just ground this for a moment in the work that we're doing at Mass Mentoring Partnership. You know, we're seeing every day that there are young people whose lives are in question. This moment is not one that has been easy for our young people. Young people are navigating systems that don't always see them. They're carrying pressures that many of us didn't have to carry at their age, looking for stability, looking for connection, and for someone to show up in a real way. And what we know is that this moment matters for them too, because what we build or don't build right now is going to shape not just the next few years, but the next decade and the next generation. So this conversation is about both those things at once, right? It's about the urgency of right now and the responsibility that we have to where we're going next. So I'm just gonna start simple. We're gonna start at a very high level for each of you to share with us a formal overview of what's the issue, right? What's the issue that you're working on? Importantly, what are you actually seeing on the ground that people might not fully understand? Let's start with Dina.
Okay. Thank you, Cynthia, and I promise I'm going to respond to the prompt, but if I may just begin by thanking MassINC for this extraordinary opportunity to serve as a senior fellow. Everyone's nodding in agreement with that, and also WGBH for this opportunity to speak to the public about it. So thank you for that, and to you. So my name is Dina Fein. I am a retired housing court judge. I'm no longer a judge. I don't speak for the housing court, for the court system, but I'm choosing to do a body of work now that is based on my experience in part as a judge. And so I offer that for context. What I'm specifically doing, and the topic of my fellowship, and what I'm trying to do with my post-judicial work life, is to work with gateway cities, municipalities around the Commonwealth, and their nonprofit partners and funders to repurpose vacant, abandoned, distressed properties in their communities into affordable homeownership opportunities in particular. And there's a slide with some stats on it that I was going to report. I don't know whether it's coming up now, but I'm happy to reference those data. And I will say that, oh yes, great. Thank you. One of the great things about this fellowship is that it gave me the opportunity to work with fabulous people at MassINC, including notably Ben Foreman, who's in the room, and Elise Raposa, who run the Policy Center at MassINC. They have started a series of research efforts and publications called the Housing Monitor. And so the data that's reflected on that slide is from MassINC's 2024 and 2025 Housing Monitor. I'm already in the weeds. Is that okay with you? Okay. So this is the problem, or this is sort of the reality on the ground, which is that gateway cities need approximately 36,000 additional homes, by which we mean housing units of one sort or another. Gateway City have over 23,000 vacant units, hello, that's a lot of the need is at least represented quantitatively in terms of the vacancy. Here's some other facts that sort of drive my work these days. Just 20% of gateway city households can afford to buy the typical home in their community. White home ownership rate is at 57%, black home ownership rate is at 37%, and there are 95 homeowner deserts in gateway cities, meaning neighborhoods where fewer than 1 in 5 homes are actually owner occupied, and 16 times more likely to be in neighborhoods with highly concentrated poverty. So that's the reality. We need more homes. We have too many vacancies. There's an affordability gap. There's a disparate racial gap, and we have homeowner deserts in the Commonwealth. And so facing that reality and drawing upon what I did as a housing court judge, which I'm happy to talk more about when the time is right, I've been trying to work with municipalities, nonprofits, and funders to really think about how to turn those vacant properties into affordable homeownership opportunities. And it's slow going, it's really hard, it's very complex, it takes forever, but that's what I'm working on.
Thank
So,
you. Thank
was
you
that
for
responsive?
Yeah, that was great.
Okay.
That was great. You really helped frame what the issue is, why it matters, and the significant gap. And given that we have a housing crisis
Yeah.
right at this time, I'm going to turn it to Leverett because folks like Dina are civically engaged, right, in making sure that housing is available to folks. You've been doing some phenomenal work. If you can share with us a little bit more about what's the issue that you're closest to right now and why now? What's so urgent about the issue?
Sure. As Charlotte mentioned, I'm Leverett Wing. I'm the executive director of the Commonwealth Seminar. The Commonwealth Seminar is a civic education, engagement, training, skills building, and networking program geared towards diverse communities. We have over 2,500 grads. We're about to celebrate our 25th anniversary starting next year.
Congratulations. Congratulations.
Sure, I'll take applause. Sure. And we're trying to bring that model of the Commonwealth Seminar to gateway cities. What we did was we distributed surveys to through our partners, through MassINC, through our 2,500 grads, through to community organizations, to business organizations throughout gateway cities to assess what their needs were, what their barriers were to civic engagement, what lessons they would want to learn, what would help them and their communities become more civically engaged. We followed those up with focus groups to try to delve more into the data. And ultimately, what we've ended with is we've conducted 2 civic engagement training programs to gateway cities regions. One is sort of the South Shore and the South Coast. Sometimes they don't like to mix and match South Coast and South Shore, but they did for this one. We also went into Western Mass with the civic engagement training. And we're going up to, in April, Lawrence and Lowell for what was supposed to be 1 civic engagement training, but breaking news as of yesterday for everybody at MassINC, it's actually going to be 2 because there's actually such a demand for this type of training that we're going up to Lowell for 2 separate gateway cities trainings. It'll be after our fellowship ends, but there is enough demand that folks wanted us to do that. And so our hope is to increase civic engagement. We've done enough surveys, we've got enough data, and that will also be manifested in a report that we're going to be putting out later this month with some of our findings, with some of the discussions in the focus groups, and also with some of the things that we went through in the different trainings. So we're trying to increase civic engagement in gateway cities, but there are so many gateway cities, and we've only been able to do 2 trainings, and it's sort of the plight of the nonprofit, where you want to do more, and you know that you need to do more, and the demand is there. We figured we would only get maybe 100 survey responses. We got over 500 survey responses, which shows that there's a demand out there, that there's a need out there. People want this. And so for folks who are out there, I really do encourage you to, if you can, support your local organization, support your nonprofits, support the Commonwealth Seminar, cheap plug, who are doing this type of work to increase civic engagement and to get their neighbors, to get their communities involved in government and involved in the decision-making process. Because one of the things that we're focused on is access and inclusivity. And that's something that I think is sorely lacking in so many of our communities, which is preventing civic engagement and voter participation and people getting involved, being whether it's on the community level, elected official level, getting involved in government.
Yeah. It's a great segue to Mary, who is very involved in making sure that there's policies, right, that are reflective of the needs of people right on the ground. So maybe, Mary, you can share a little bit about what is the issue that you are closest to right now and why does it matter? What's so urgent?
Thank you. The issue that brings me here today is rising and unmanageable energy costs. And these energy costs affect health, they affect housing, they affect the economy. And my concern is that the policy solutions that are being advanced, such as the recently passed Massachusetts Energy Affordability Bill in the House, has already been acknowledged by leadership as a solution that will not actually reduce energy bills. So it's pretty interesting that we can recognize a problem, have a solution, vote on it, and then say it will not address the original problem that it was supposed to solve. So you find that Massachusetts residents are paying utility bills up to 32% sometimes higher than the national average. And our utility bills are influenced by volatile gas prices, massive utility infrastructure spending, and record utility profits. And instead of addressing those pressures, the House bill weakens MassSave, the only program that can actually help residents reduce their energy usage and lower their monthly costs. So I'm here essentially because people deserve solutions that make a real difference. And to make an example, I live in Lowell. The city of Lowell currently, the gas company that provides gas in that area has a rate case. So I have my own hot water gas bill, which last month was $45. If we apply the energy affordability bill that just passed, and we said, let me subtract $5, which is the energy efficiency surcharge, I should be happy that my bill will reduce by $5. Unfortunately, there's a rate case. At the end of the rate case, my bill will actually be higher with like $6. So what are we doing?
Yeah. So it's a cost affordability issue. I think that's the issue we're having across the board when we're talking about housing and we're talking about energy. And I'm sure, Leverett, some of the things you were hearing on the ground. So I'm gonna pivot to talk a little bit about what does this look like in your everyday, because this context was really helpful. But Leverett, you've been spending a lot of time on the ground having conversations with people across communities. When you stripped everything else away, what are folks actually worried about right now, and what stuck out to you that maybe doesn't show up in reports?
Gosh, I mean, what stuck out to me is, and everything everybody's talking about, everything's intersectional. I mean, it's housing affordability, it's energy affordability. The theme, the common theme, and not to get too dramatic, is fear.
Yeah.
Fear and concern. Fear that they can't afford housing. Fear that the energy prices are rising too quickly. Fear that something that is maybe a little less economic, that fear that our our histories and our stories are both figuratively and literally being erased. Fear of attacks on immigrants, on their communities, because 91% of the Commonwealth seminar grads are either first generation or new American, and 91% of our grads are from communities of color. So it's that fear across all levels, across all spectrums that we've discovered is the common theme. And in terms of ways to address it, again, there's no one magic, for lack of a better term, silver bullet. Everything is intersectional. All of our solutions need to be done. All of our communities need to work together to come up with solutions together, because not one community has the answer. Not one sector has the answer. And so it's that broad need for collaboration and allyship that makes it seem so daunting sometimes, because that's also part of the fear. It's like, how are we going to pull this off? But what we've discovered is, slowly but surely, I think somebody who is near and dear to both of us, former Governor Deval Patrick, used to say brick by brick. Brick by brick, little by little, our communities are coming together through allyships, through collaborations across all sectors. Whether it's the philanthropic sector with the Boston Foundation, with the Asian Community Fund, the BECMA, the LGBTQ plus Chamber of Commerce, We Are ALX. They've been coming together to foster economic inclusivity. Across the board, I think it's the loose Immigration Justice Network has actually put together over 24 community organizations to help identify ICE in their communities. The Massachusetts Black and Latino Legislative Caucus has allied with the Asian Legislative Caucus to come forward and propose legislation. They just passed the PROTECT Act. So it's these little things that you don't see in the headlines sometimes. And sometimes, we're so focused on the headlines. We're so focused on the big thing, on the rhetoric, on the sound bites and the photo ops, that we miss what's happening on the ground. And it's the things on the ground that are making things much more encouraging. And those are the things that are giving me personally hope, and a lot of the folks in our communities hope.
Yeah. And speaking of on the ground, I'm going to pivot to Dina. You've seen the housing system from the ground and from all sorts of angles. When you think about the people behind the policies, what's one moment or experience that has changed how you see this work?
It's hard to pick just one. I guess I'd like to pick up also on what Leverett just said, to offer a friendly amendment to your observation that there's a lot of fear, with which I absolutely agree. There's a lot of pain also. And I know that you agree with that. And I saw a ton of that as a housing court judge. I mean, a lot of what a housing court judge does, of necessity and properly so, is evict people. And I also did a lot of work with cases involving municipal efforts to deal with distressed properties. And so I saw specific examples of the way in which people were impacted in both of those case types. I will tell a story, if I can get through it, about one of the things that the housing court, on almost a daily basis, has to do is deal with people who are literally about to be evicted at the very last minute, coming to the court looking for emergency relief. And it's a very, very difficult situation. And I want to be careful here, not for a moment to suggest that the vicarious trauma of managing evictions is anything like the actual trauma of being evicted. But there was a case that really stood out for everyone in the courthouse where I was working, and it involved a mother coming to stop an eviction that was literally happening. The sheriff was at her door, the moving truck was at her door, and she had with her her very young teenage boy. And there was something about this boy. He had on brand new orange sneakers that he had paid for himself, with a job that he seemed way too young to have gotten. And his concern was that if he got evicted, he wouldn't make it to his exam the next morning. And all of that, and he was there essentially trying to care for his mother, who was not able to care for herself for a variety of reasons. And there was something about that young man that just, you could feel everybody in the courtroom just, it was a there but for the grace of God kind of moment for a lot of people in the courtroom, that could have been my son. It could have been my son. And it's human moments like that that I just tried as a judge to manage, and that then drove me to do the work that I wanted to do afterwards. And fast forward, and 15, and that was a long time ago, that case, so it just reflects the impact that it had on all of us. But fast forward 20 years or something, and I was fortunate to be at the groundbreaking of the first property in Springfield that was going from vacant and boarded up and distressed and burdening that neighborhood to something that was going to house an owner-occupant, maybe that boy and his family or someone like them. And the people who were at that event, the Secretary of Housing and Livable Communities, the mayor's office, state representatives, funders, all committing to that effort, that was just a very moving experience for me to see that in some small way we could be participating in something that made the lives of people like that young boy better.
Yeah, and that's the human story, right?
Right.
The stories behind each of these issues that you all have been sort of standing behind and trying to move forward. There's people. There's a human element to each of these stories. And I want to turn it to Mary, right? Like the policy conversation can sometimes sound like a lot, abstract policy concepts, but we're really talking about families and people and, what's the cost that they're dealing with, right? So what's the impact, going back to this theme around the human story, that folks are actually facing?
So I actually think that over time, there's been this false divide between the human is here, the policymaker is here, or the job is here, the person is here. That's a false divide that we need to intentionally overcome. Because, for instance, my electric bill is $400 and sometimes higher, right? That's not policy. That's my bill. That's too expensive. And there's nothing, it's here and it's there. It's really a false divide. And again, it needs to be intentionally dismantled. One of the most shocking human stories that has surprised me, I work in affordable housing. So about 2 years ago, I received a call from a utility company that was planning to disconnect a formerly homeless individual that had just been placed into new affordable housing that the planning office built. So if you just think about that, someone just became stable. And as they're becoming stable, you're threatening to disconnect their power. What's that? It's very perplexing. The other thing is, as we were collecting data on the energy affordability notice of inquiry from the Department of Public Utilities, I came across a couple that are disabled in rural Massachusetts. They use wood for heating because their electric heat-resistant system does not work. It's going to be too expensive. It works, but it's going to be too expensive. So they'd rather use a polluting agent, and then we have policymakers or regulators on the other side clapping hands that they passed an energy affordability bill, and then they turn around and say, oh, it's not going to make any changes to your life. So those are the real human stories, and we should not have human on one side. After all, a regulator is a human being. A politician is a human being that turns the lights on and off. So we should carry that humanity in everything that we do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I want to draw on something that Leverett said earlier, right? Each of the issues that we're talking about here, and even Pema's work that she's not here to speak of today, education, housing, energy, engagement, right, in the process, these are all issues that intersect. So where do you find the connections? Where do you think we're getting stuck? And where do you see the opportunity, right, for more cross-sectoral work in order to improve life for folks in Massachusetts? Any of you?
I can say something. I guess, and I hope this is responsive. I want to pick up on Mary's comment. She used the word stability, and I think that that is a theme that runs through what we're all trying to do. We're trying to help individuals and families and communities stabilize, because instability is bad, and we'll talk at some point, I think, about how the social compact sort of is at the root of what needs to be considered to foster stability. But I think that the systems that we need to engage to improve lives for individuals and families and neighborhoods need a cultural shift, and meaning that we who work in those systems need to stop looking from the inside out at the work and start looking from the outside in at the work. There are human beings at both ends of that transaction or relationship. There are human beings doing the work, and there are human beings being impacted by how well or not well the work is being done. And I think sort of invoking that humanity on both sides of the transaction, remembering always and centering the humanity of the people that are impacted by our work, and then really encouraging, rewarding, honoring, modeling the humanity that it takes to do the work well is, it's a little pie in the sky, but I think there's something about that, because the work that we're talking about requires systems to align in furtherance of a particular effort.
Absolutely.
Those systems don't align naturally. Someone has to go outside her day job to make sure that there is the connection between and among the various activities to move a collaborative initiative forward. That's a human impulse that has to be encouraged and cultivated.
And I think Leverett wanted to jump in. Before you jump in, Leverett, maybe you can also, I know you have your own thought that you're percolating,
a little
you want to get
hamster
out
at
there.
the wheel is
maybe
running
also,
circles now.
Maybe also
Yes.
think, Leverett, about what's already working. Is there something that's working that we should be doubling down on right now?
I think to go to what is working right now, I did reference a few of those things in my previous answer. I actually have an op-ed in the Boston Globe today that I was fortunate enough to write with State Senator Lydia Edwards and Gladys Vega, the CEO of La Collaborativa, on some of the things that are working both locally and nationally. And those are the collaborations, those are the intersectional things that we're doing as communities, and all of our communities coming together to realize that we are all in this together. I think one of the things that, and again, my thoughts are going all over the place because it's such a complex question and such a complex answer. There is no simple answer.
Yeah.
It's going to the humanity, going to, I think, bottom line for me has always been access. It's accessing that humanity. You talked about decision makers making this policy where, oh, this is a wonderful policy, but they don't see the impact it has on different communities, particularly diverse communities. How do the decision makers access those communities? How do we access those decision makers so that they can see our perspectives, so that they can access their humanity, say, oh, that is a difficult situation. I didn't consider that. That is one of the things that is a primary concern of mine, is access to the system, access for our communities, access to each other, so that we know our stories. So often we're so And we have to be, because we're so siloed, because we're just trying to survive. Our own communities are trying to survive. We don't look outside because we can't. We don't have time to look outside. And so when we finally do, when we have access to other communities, we can access the humanity of other communities so that we can see the shared plights, we can see the shared struggles and successes, so we can access each other, so that we can then come to these consensus and we can then come to some of these solutions.
Yeah. I'm gonna bring young people into the conversation because I get the opportunity to do so as someone who's sitting at Mass Mentoring Partnership. Young people, I mentioned earlier, they're navigating a lot of things, and we talked about access. We see what it looks like when young people have access. They have access to strong relationships, when they have access to guidance and people who truly, love and support them and truly show up for them. We also see what happens when they don't have that kind of access and support, right? So I'd love to hear from each of you, actually, where do young people show up in the work right now? Not just as future leaders, but as people who are navigating these systems that we're talking about today. And what do you think needs to happen differently right now, right, to make sure that they actually have a shot at thriving? So whomever wants to take this first, you're welcome. Maybe I'll start with Mary, if that's okay.
So young people show up because if I am in a household as a parent and I cannot afford I'm choosing between groceries and heat, my kids are affected. So it's not even about tomorrow. They are living this lived experience today that is forced down upon them by a system that's not using data correctly or making decisions in ways that are linked. And so I believe that my children will inherit the infrastructure that we're building today, which is why I'm actively involved in making sure if there's something that needs to be changed, it should be changed. The other thing is that I don't like to view young people as future leaders, just as I said, because they're experiencing something today. But I like to view them as experts of their own lived experience. And my hope is that in the future, they'll be able to bring that lived experience, not just tomorrow, but even today. And folks in the climate movement are very bringing young people all the time. So they are not tomorrow, they are actually today. Because if we don't take care of greenhouse gas emissions tomorrow, they will be the ones living in that world. If we want to do anything to help them, we need to change. That's the way we can help young people. And we need to build systems that allow them to have tools to demand truth tomorrow. And we need to build a foundation that makes sure that they do not have to fight the same 100-year barriers that I'm fighting today.
Yeah. And I just want to take a pause because I want to acknowledge that Senator Liz Miranda is in the room, in the audience. We're really pleased to have the senator here with us. She has been someone that's been so dedicated to connecting young people to opportunities. She herself is a mentor and a huge supporter of our work at Mass Mentoring Partnership. So thank you so much for being with us here today for this conversation and for all the work that you're doing with young people in the state. Leverett, I know you've been doing a ton of work lately, engaging and organizing young people. So
Senator Miranda was one of our graduation speakers. She's come to speak with the Commonwealth Seminar a few times, so thank you so much. Yes, the Commonwealth Seminar, actually we have our third annual Youth Empowerment Conference coming up in about a week and a half. We have been working with the Coalition for Anti-Racism and Equity to work on our legislative our Leadership Next Gen program. And I think to go back to what you were mentioning, it's the tools that we can offer them. And it's not just sort of the knowledge. And again, the seminar and a lot of our partners offer the knowledge and the skills and the networks. But it's the foundation where they don't have to work. where maybe they can come to, because so often they would love to participate. They would love to come to a conference. They'd love to come to one of the seminars, but they don't have time or the resources because they're caring for their families. They're caring for themselves. They're caring for their schoolwork. They're caring for their siblings. It's not just the knowledge and the tools, but it's also the family foundations that we need to offer our youth. And that's why so many of these solutions are intersectional, because I'd love to say, yes, come to the Commonwealth seminar, we'll give you everything we need, but we can't. It's because we have, all of the solutions, all of the issues are intersectional. I think, and that's part of why our youth are such an important part. The other tool I would love to point out is the knowledge. In terms of our stories. And I talk about our stories previously being erased, our histories being erased. That's why inclusive education. I know that there are bills out there. Again, I mentioned CARE, the Coalition for Anti-Racism and Equity, and other folks have been pushing hard for inclusive education in K through 12 to multicultural education, so that our youth have the knowledge and the background that they can then utilize to move forward and work with other communities, because they know their own stories.
Yeah.
They know other communities' stories, so that they can ally with these communities. So it's, again, so intersectional. It's the foundational things so that they can manage things at home. There's the skills, tools, and knowledge that they need to work with decision makers. And then there's the education, and then there's affordability. And once again, intersectional, the hamster at the wheel is going crazy right now because he's running into himself. And it's just, there's so much that we need to do that it can be overwhelming, but slowly but surely we're getting it done if we work together across our diverse communities.
Absolutely. So we're about to close I'm going to have one more question for the panel, then we're going to open it up to the audience. Fast popcorn style, right? Doesn't have to be polished, doesn't have to be detailed, but what is something that gives you just enough hope in doing this work that keeps you going, right? As these are challenging topics that we're talking about, right? So we'll go down the line. Leverett, you go first. Popcorn style.
The youth. I mean, you've got, again, our youth conference. You've got my Commonwealth Seminar alumni, who's my younger twin Latina sister, Jaylee Pereira, who's just a prime example. You've got the youth. They're the ones that give me hope, because this is going to be an intergenerational struggle. And when our youth are involved in it, and our youth, again, have the tools and the wherewithal to do it, that's what gives me hope.
Thank you. Thank you. Dina.
I think it's the excitement when a good idea is put out into the universe. There are a lot of people waiting for good ideas,
Yes.
and my experience around the work that I'm doing is that folks light up when they think about this possibility of creating more home ownership and what it means for the households and the neighborhoods that are impacted. And there are people out there that are lifting up and modeling the right values, and so that gives me hope also.
Thanks, Dina. Mary?
What gives me hope is that there's an energy affordability bill before the Massachusetts Senate, and I'm hoping that they're actually going to restore the $1 billion in massive funding and immediately reinstate alternative compliance funding.
We wouldn't have a community organizer if we didn't have that last plug, but thank you so much. All right, we're going to turn it over to the audience. We have our very fabulous Senator Miranda, who will be kicking us off with the first question. Senator?
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. Super excited to be here, and obviously feels good. I just want to thank WGBH and MassINC for these conversations. A year ago, I was on one about birthing justice, and we had a bill signed into law making Massachusetts the leader on birth justice in the nation. And thank you for the shout out, because I am the vice chair of the Black and Latino Caucus. And we just put forth the PROTECT Act that passed in the House, and now it's at the Senate along with the energy bond bill. So thank you for that. I think my question is that I'm glad that you ended with what keeps us hopeful. There's a lot of problems. The federal government's not making it easier. States like Massachusetts have to step up on almost every issue, right? I would really love to hear the perspective of the panelists around immigration. Polls are showing that housing is the #1 issue in the Commonwealth, and immigration is a very close second. Yeah. And a couple years ago, people were like, this is a border problem. And now we see that most households in Massachusetts, whether they're for or against progressive policies around immigration, it is the topic of the day. And we find that most people don't even have the capacity to talk about housing, energy affordability, education, getting a new job, or going back to school because they're just afraid.
Yeah.
They're afraid to come out of their homes, they're afraid to go to courts, and they're afraid to go to hospitals. And so I would love for folks to talk about that, and just really fabulous. I don't know if you can see that you have a big audience here, but I'm just really happy I could be here. Thanks.
Very good. All right.
I mean, the immigration has been at one of the forefronts of the Commonwealth Seminar's work. I think I mentioned 91% of our alumni, 2,500 alumni, are either first gen or new Americans. And one of the things that we've encountered through one of our newer initiatives is Seminar Beyond English, where we have taken the seminar to communities where English is not the primary language. And in one of those, we did one in Haitian Creole. And we expected, okay, we'll go and we'll do ours, and we'll do our general overview of Commonwealth Seminar, legislative process, budget process, lobbying, things like that, which we've done in other communities. But what we discovered was, of the 30 folks who logged onto the Zoom, 90% were brand new Americans from Haiti a couple of them were only in America for about 3 weeks. The longest was maybe 3 months. A couple of them were living in hotels. They brought their families around the phone and the camera to learn about the system. One of the things is immigrants don't know the system. And it makes it very difficult for immigrants to access the resources that they need to fight for their own rights, to know which decision makers do which. For immigration, some people were going to their city councilors. Well, it's a nice start, but the city councilors are not the ones who handle it. It's the federal government, it's the federal officials and decision makers. They didn't know that. And so it's that type of knowledge and access to resources that we've been working on. And one of the things that was actually most gratifying of this whole thing was that we were able to give them a welcoming space. I mean, so often, particularly now, immigrants are the bane of America's existence. But we were able to actually welcome them and make them feel, for just even the 2 hours we were together, that they belonged in this country, because they do belong in this country. We all belong in this country. And so that's something that we've discovered is, again, you mentioned fear. It's fear, it's the fear of not knowing if you're going to be taken away. It's the fear of not knowing where to go, because that's the additional stress. The fear of not being able to provide for your families because you don't know how to get the resources that you need. And so, yeah, I think immigration is a big part of what we're working on with the Commonwealth Seminar.
Yeah.
So thank you for mentioning that.
Yeah, so I am originally from Kenya, and I've lived in Massachusetts for 20 years. And it took me a very long time to feel confident to engage with my city. But I should say that the fact that there's been a lot of other welcoming, there's been an environment created to help me thrive. I have thrived. So the opposite is also true. Now we have an environment that's not suitable or that doesn't support the thriving of immigrants. And obviously, I'm happy that Massachusetts is trying to do something about that, but all these problems that we are talking about, housing, energy, there are immigrants that are engaged in all these parts of the system. So if we want homes to be weatherized in Lawrence, they won't be, even if people don't feel confident to open their doors to someone who wants to insulate, even if it's a public service. So this is key. And America is a country of immigrants. And I think that the more we keep it that way, the better.
I don't think anybody would, well, we're not arguing with that point, at least those of us. Thank you, Senator. So we have a couple more questions from the audience.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jaylee Pereira. I live in Dorchester, Massachusetts, then Boston. Thank you so much to, I just want to give a shout out to Leverett and Cynthia for being my mentors as a young professional, and for seeing and believing that young folks can be leaders. Thank you for all that you've invested into me, and thank you to the entire panel that's here and speaking on your work. Speaking about young people and folks, I also say young as 30 and under. I think for my generation, seeing everything going on in the world, especially on social media and just media in general, what is your advice in each of your areas of expertise and knowledge over the years of community organizing and advocacy work? What is your advice for folks who are looking to get involved, who want to make an impact? What is your advice to them of how they can get involved, and from your aspect in your different organizations, how young folks have maybe stepped up in different roles and seen themselves as being able to grow in these fields as well?
I'll respond to that. I'm a lawyer and an ex-judge now, and so I think that we need to help young people understand what the social compact is all about. I used that phrase earlier, and just to be clear, I think history would bear out that we as a species came to realize that we were stronger together than we were individually, and that's why over time we came together into communities and collectives to take care of each other, because that meant we were taking care of ourselves also. And that sort of organizing principle seems to have gotten lost somewhere along the line. I think that helping young people in particular understand that they get as much by giving as they do by getting is true at many levels, and that we need to, we're a very data-driven society, properly so in lots of ways, but we need to value this metric of social good in and of itself in a way that opens a path for young people to pursue that goal and not feel like they're getting behind in other ways, I guess is one thing I would say.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I mean, I think particularly for the communities that we live in, we often live in a bit of a vacuum where we are with people who are civically engaged. We are with people who care deeply about, not that others don't care deeply about their communities, but that we are so hyper-focused on civic engagement and policy and things like that. When I think back many, many years ago to when I was in high school and college, I remember there were 3 priorities I had. They were school, basketball, and girls, and not necessarily in that order. And so what finally got me engaged was finally seeing something that impacted me. Where did a decision that was being made, and this was in college, it was the sort of the college hierarchy, and I've shared this story with you before, the sort of the college hierarchy made a decision that, no, that's not fair, that's not right. That's what finally got me civically engaged. And to me, it's finding a way to access or tap that in a young person's brain where, no, this actually impacts me, whether it's student loans. I mean, maybe that's the big thing right now, is student loans affordability, going back to affordability. But also, there are just housing stability, housing prices. I mean, you and I have talked about that as well. It's that type of affordability. There are so many hooks that we can get, that we can bring young people in to try to get them involved. And then start small, because so often, particularly, you know, again, you and I have talked about this, sort of the teens, 20s, late 20s, early 30s, those are hard times. Mm-hmm. You're just trying to find your way. I mean, people talk about, oh, wasn't it a great time? No, it stunk. I remember my 20s, it stunk. And I was just trying to find my way. And so start small. Don't overwhelm folks with, no, we got to do this. There are some people who are able to do it, like yourself. There are others who you've kind of go back to that brick by brick, step by step, slowly but surely get them involved. So to me, those are the slowest steps, but it's kind of like, how do you solve world peace? You can't really do it in 30 seconds, but those are some of the small steps that I would take.
Yeah. I think Mary wanted to chime in before we get to our last question. Did you want to say something, Mary?
Yeah, one of the simple things you can do if you're a young person living in Massachusetts, You can call your senator, you can write to them and tell them to make sure the bill makes energy affordable.
And I'll just add a thought, because I feel like I've earned the right to do so because of our relationship, Jaylee. Intergenerational relationships are really important. It goes both ways. Young people should be active, but older folks need to make way for young people's voices and contributions to be part of the conversation and be part of the action. So I just want to offer that we have to do better. I think in the workplace, for younger folks who are in their 20s and 30s, in the school space where, college students who are trying to get their foot in the door and get those opportunities, even high schoolers, et cetera, so that we can provide that sort of back and forth reciprocated energy, conversation, guidance, because we have a lot to learn also from younger generations and folks that are of Jaylee's generation. So there's that intergenerational piece I think that's missing, a proactive piece that we all have a part to play. Thanks, Jaylee.
Thank you so much.
So our last person.
Good afternoon. My name is Philip Page. I'm from Brookline, Massachusetts. Can you hear me?
A little bit.
Turn up the mic a little bit. There we go. Thank you.
Okay, Philip Page from Brookline, Massachusetts. Wonderful talk today. Incredible work that each of you are doing. One of the questions, or the question I have for you, relates to the multi-dimension aspects of the work. And I'm curious about the strategic ways you went about coalition building to launch each of those efforts, because that's a critical part. When you talk about intersectionality, you talk about the relationships that have to be part of the experience. How did you go about, at the front end of this work, creating strategic coalitions that helped you to further that effort?
May I take a pass at
sure.
that? Because you're exactly right, in my opinion, to focus on that. And I don't want to overstate what I've accomplished in the work that I'm trying to do at all, but I will say that I think starting with an awareness that it takes a coalition is a good start. And thinking, sort of zooming out to see who really needs to participate in order to bring about a specific outcome. Because I think one of the things we've all been saying is that if you just look at a given system, you're missing some of the key elements that it takes to bring about this goal. And so you really need to see who needs to be at the table. And then the second thing I would say is, it's nobody's job to make those systems align often. And so either someone has to be, and that needs to be said out loud. So you're trying to build this coalition, this collaboration to bring about a result. You know, as the person striving for this outcome, that there are aspects that need to be accomplished, and it's no one's job to do them. So that needs to be talked about, it seems to me, at the beginning of an initiative. And either somebody needs to take it on, or the team needs to agree to behave differently as a team than they do on a day-to-day basis. I know that's a little vague, but I hope it was responsive to your question.
Great. Mary?
Yeah, I think based on the environment that we are in today that's becoming more and more polarized, I think we need to reevaluate coalition building. Part of moving energy efficiency equity in Massachusetts we've had to bring in people who do not necessarily agree with us. So it's important that we begin to have these conversations with those that we don't agree with. Because if we want to solve these challenges, we can't just keep hiding staying in an echo chamber. So,
Yeah, absolutely. So we have one more question for the audience. This question is a written question from Laura, and it reads, and this is for anyone on the panel, these are not quote-unquote normal times. How do we get to the bold and high-impact solutions from practices around the world? And how do we break the fear of trying something dramatic and out of the box?
well, if you think about it, like in the energy world, right? We've already tried private equity structure for like 100 years, and we've seen that our energy bills keep increasing. So there's some problems that we know what has happened in the past. We just have to be bold and courageous to say we don't want to continue this way. Otherwise, if we keep trying to play safe, we're not going to solve some of these challenges.
Thank you, thank you. Just last thought, yeah.
I think the answer for this is also related to the previous answer that I would have given, is everything sort of is the foundation for all new initiatives is based on the relationships that you build. You're not going to go into a new initiative with somebody that you don't trust. You need to build that collaboration, you need to build that trust, you need to build that accountability, you need to build that comfort with everybody so that you can go in and try these new, bolder initiatives. And to do that, sometimes you need to start with allies who are non-traditional as well. Because quite often the traditional alliances, the traditional collaborations are leading to more traditional answers and traditional solutions, which may or may not work. So what I would like for, and I do this to every crowd that I'm in, so forgive me. What I would love for you all to do, I want to thank MassINC, Charlotte, and GBH for bringing us together. This crowd does not come together very often or very easily. So what I would love for you to do is anybody here meet one or two people who you do not know yet, and that you can potentially build collaborations or relationships with, because you never know whether it's next week, next month, next year, next decade, who your potential ally can be in terms of collaborating. You never know what they can bring to the table. So we build these new ideas, we build these bolder ideas through new collaborations, new allies that maybe we haven't come together with before. So I'm giving you all homework while you eat your snacks. There's no such thing as a free lunch, or no such thing as a free snack. So I'm asking all of you to do that if you could before we.
Thanks for the call to action, Leverett. Thank you so much. We're about to wrap up our time together here. Thank you so much for this great conversation. I think what we're seeing here today is people who are deeply committed. There's an urgency of now that we need to address, and these are folks who really have a sense of passion, of commitment, and foresight, right, as to sort of what are the issues that we need to see and progress into the future. I just want to leave one last thought, and there's a quote that I often come back to by Gloria Ansaldúa that reads, "Nothing happens in the real world unless it first happens in the images in our heads." So this work takes a lot of imagination. It takes sketching out the action steps, and it takes all of us really mobilizing and doing something about it if we're truly going to shape the Massachusetts that we want, not for just this generation, but the next and the ones to come. I'll turn it over to Charlotte.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's just put our hands together for this panel. And I mean, wonderful discussion, really wonderful. Leverett Wing, Dina Fein, Mary Wambui, and Dr. Cynthia Orellana. What a great conversation. I also want to thank you for your work, not just the talk, not just the conversation, but what you do day in and day out. Thank you for caring. Thank you for working so hard. And we have a better Massachusetts, really, because of you all. I want to thank a few other folks. I want to thank the audience, of course, all of you who are here today in this studio. Thanks for watching from your homes or your offices, wherever you are. Really, we appreciate your presence here today. And as we close, I do have a few acknowledgments. Our GBH collaborating partners, Lee Hill, Annie Schreffler, and the team, Emma Jocks, Juan Jose Cadena Dueñas, Tisha Wilson, Maddie Geyer, and Andrew Longo, all of you, thank you. And those who I haven't mentioned, you do a great job here. My colleagues at MassINC, Joe Kreisberg, Maeve Duggan, Ayanna Polk, it has been a pleasure working with each and every one of you. Our organizational partners, Commonwealth Seminar, Latinos for Education, Mass Mentoring Partnership, the Massachusetts Women of Color Coalition, PDL Consulting, the Planning Office for Urban Affairs, Archdiocese of Boston, thank you. And there's several individuals here who helped me be the best that I could be as a co-producer in this effort, and I want to give them a shout out. Frederic Rigolo, I need to start with, we worked together on the 4 of the 5 projects. Frederic, we miss you, you were a terrific partner. Kristen Halbert, who recruited me to participate here. These are women who gave me advice and helped me find an excellent moderator. Laura Younger, Joanne Massaro, Freddie K, who backed our previous programs, Marcia Kim Jackson, and thank you, Senator Liz Miranda, who stopped by to say hello. I invite you all now for some refreshments and hope you will go on and do what you can to shape a better future, a better Massachusetts for us all. Thank you.